It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Beautiful day for a neighbor. Could you be mine? Would you be mine?
I always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you. So grab yourself a whiskey glass and join us today.
Since we're together, we might as well say,
would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you drink with us, our neighbor?
hi neighbor.
Hey neighbor. And by the way guys, Whiskey Pop is back. Join us today for some crazy whiskey stories.
Right after this.
Don't come round and waste my time. A generation of my time. There is nothing we can do. Stop this plague from breaking through.
Welcome to Whiskey Pop. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Zane.
Holy shit, Zane.
It's been a minute.
It's been almost 2 years.
I know.
It was like 2022. We said we'll see you guys in a few weeks next year. Meantime, continue to be geeky, and we'll see you next year in 2023 with a new review and a new episode.
Cheers. I mean, shit. Cheers. And then boom.
And this is 2 years later almost.
And we are AI versions of ourselves. We're not actually sitting here, right?
No, we really are here. We do look this old now.
Ouch.
So, I mean, Whiskey Pop's back in season 4?
I know, I can hardly believe it.
I can't believe it. It's like, we're like, yeah, I guess we'll do it. I mean,
well, you know.
We get people all the time, "Are you guys ever coming back?" And we're like,
Yeah, well.
But then we needed more to drink because we ran out of stuff in the whiskey cabinet.
This drink, I like it. Another!
That's actually kind of how that goes, isn't
That
it?
is true. We needed to restock, and we're like, well, how's the restock? We may as well review it too.
Yeah, and if you find that hard to believe.
Then you will have a hard time believing today's episode.
Because, what is today's episode?
We remember we've done those whiskey believe it or not episodes, right? So we're gonna do another whiskey
Believe it or not.
But before we do that, there was this thing we used to do.
We used to get a whiskey, pour it up, drink it.
And today we're gonna do that. And today is James E. Pepper.
All right, you need me to get you your glasses out?
Yeah.
It's been a few years.
James E. Pepper, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey.
So is this cast strength? Is this filter?
Barrel proof.
Oh, barrel proof.
Oh, shit.
I think that sounds good.
So we're gonna crack this open and try it.
Ooh. I have missed this.
Hell, this is getting ready to come back.
I'm thinking I'm back.
So, what do you think? We should, try this?
I think we need to try this.
Here we go. Oh. Why did we stop making episodes?
I don't know, but I think we're going to need to tell people all about this.
Next week when we do
Our second pour.
where we tell you how we think about this whiskey and
Actually review it.
tell you if you should go buy it or not. The plus side this time is you have a whole week to go out and find this bottle and share it with us on the same day it comes out.
That's right.
So now you can try the whiskey with us.
So, next Friday, second pour.
James E. Pepper, barrel proof.
I like a shot of whiskey, and so would my companion. It ain't too much trouble.
So our first story today
Yes,
is the story of Jesse,
Calhoun
Angus.
He said anus.
of Angus.
Oh, of Angus. That's it. Why did we put that on the notes?
I don't know because
It's really hard to get the word Angus and, that other word.
Jesse Calhoun.
No, it's not that
Of
one.
Angus.
It's like you took the G out.
Well, I'm not taking the G out of Angus
Why not, Zane?
because
G is a very useful letter.
So in Scotland, it's customary for a fair amount of whiskey to be drank
during.
during and before a funeral.
That's correct.
The story of Jesse
Calhoun
had passed away.
And she was a teacher, I'm assuming.
And she was a teacher,
Yes,
local teacher of the community. And so they were going to carry her from her resting place in the coffin to her permanent resting place in the churchyard.
Okay.
So generally what would happen with this, it would get 6 or 8 men together.
Right.
And they would travel through this town, and people would stop and say their respects and pay their respects. And they happen to do this at a local pub or inn.
Oh, of course.
Every time they did this.
Where else would you do that?
So it
Where
would
else you
take
stop?
it would take all day.
That's okay.
So they would stop along this road.
So this is where the whiskey connection's coming in.
Oh, yeah,
Is
it's
this-
coming.
Is this what it's about here?
So one such funeral of this teacher, Jesse
Calhoun.
of
Angus.
yeah, that's right, was led by her brother and a group of 6 to 8 men, and they came to the first inn and they all had a drink to
They
toast
imbibed. Jesse.
and to toast other people to toast her as well. And so as they did this, the crowd would grow.
Okay.
So they'd pick up the coffin again, they'd carry it down the road, and they'd go to the next.
The next
Pub or inn.
stop.
This went on for a few stops.
Yeah, okay.
So much so that they eventually arrived to the churchyard a little late.
And he said, hey,
Where the hell are these guys?
you guys are late. What's going on?
So the brother of Jesse said, sorry, we ran into a little bit of trouble and, you know, we got ahead of ourselves and drank a little bit too much.
Or was it more like,
It was that.
I was on my way. But
What seems to be the trouble?
He turned around and he said, well, okay, that's great and all good and all, but where's the coffin? Where's Jesse?
where's Jesse? And lo and behold, what?
Jesse wasn't there. So it looks like as they were traveling, they got so inebriated, they happened to leave her on the Lecker Stone.
The Lecker Stone.
The Lecker Stain.
Stain.
It looks like a little stone hobbit picnic table that they would put coffins on when they stopped.
You can say liquor.
Lecker.
Stain.
Barely knew her.
But you can't say Calhoun.
Calhoun.
Okay, anyway.
So they sent some young men to go back and pick up Jessie
They fetched Jesse.
and brought her back eventually.
Yes.
And they were able to finish the funeral and lay her in her final resting place.
Wow, that's anticlimactic.
But they say because of this incident, now today when you hear the term be late for one's funeral, to be late for one's funeral
Came
from this
Jesse.
Jesse story.
Well, believe it.
Or not.
Believe it or not.
Do you know Walgreens, right?
Yeah, they're like closing down like 2,000 stores.
They went out of business, right?
Yeah.
But you know, back in the 1920s, they grew.
Did they now?
They went from like this little bitty fledgling little 20 store across the United States to a whole lot more.
A whole lot more. Well, tell me about this.
So in the 1920s, we had this thing called the Volstead Act,
Yes, the Volstead Act.
which basically started prohibition.
Yes, which meant you can't have.
You can't have liquor. This is what we call the dark times.
Yeah, it's all difficult in dark times.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Not to mention at the time, the American Medical Association had already decided that whiskey and liquor couldn't be used to be a medicinal thing.
Oh, yeah, they already had ruled against said
Yeah,
thing.
it doesn't do anything. It just gets you drunk. It doesn't help you health-wise.
So why don't you tell me how they changed their mind?
About 2 years into Prohibition, they must have changed their fucking mind.
Yeah.
I was just fooling about.
They said, you know, whiskey does probably help with your health. And they decided that you could go to your doctor
Oh, my head.
and ask for a pint of whiskey.
Here, take my medication card.
And they would give you a prescription that you would take to a pharmacist who would give you a pint of whiskey. At the time, we've talked about this in previous episodes, there was only so many distillers
Yeah.
that produced medicinal whiskey for this purpose. And so you would have to go to the pharmacy to get that whiskey. Well, there was this little pharmacy back then called Walgreens. They had 20 stores. 1901 to 1920, they had 20 stores,
years,
right?
20 stores.
And by 1933 and the end of Prohibition, they had 525 stores.
Wow, that's like a 2,500% increase.
Yeah, exactly. So that's 40 stores a year.
That's pretty insane. And is it because everybody developed a cough?
Yeah, suddenly everybody needs a prescription for whiskey.
That's interesting.
Walgreens swears that the reason they grew was not because of the whiskey, but it was because the milkshake was invented around the same time.
Sure, they invented the milkshake,
So they opened
which
up the
contained
pops.
part of this elixir.
Yeah, whiskey. So they opened up these pop shops. They said that's why the stores grew.
Hey, If you can believe that.
Here's the question. Was it the whiskey that helped Walgreens grow, or was it the milkshake?
Hey, I hear it brings all the boys to the yard.
Yeah, so does whiskey.
So does whiskey.
Believe it.
Or not.
Believe it or not.
Did we used to always drink most of our glass before we got through an episode?
Here's the thing. Part about being like out of practice
Yeah.
or not doing it in a while
Yeah.
means you can set a whole level of rules for yourself.
So we could have a second pour here?
We could, but what I'm trying to say is
Yeah.
we can do what we want.
Oh, I like that idea.
Okay.
We can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever
I'm gonna
we
drink
want.
another glass of this stuff.
Just like telling another story
The whiskey destiny of William T. Mullen of Clayton.
of Clayton.
They met this young girl named Mary.
So they decided to get married in the prison.
He met the young lady Mary,
And so,
who was daddy was the jailer, and they got married at the jail.
so Daddy probably did the ceremony.
Can a jailer do the ceremony?
They probably was the justice of the peace or the leading official of the town.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. But 4 months later,
She was pregnant.
Alabama formally withdrew from the
Oh.
Union,
Oh.
and Mr. William T. Mullen joined the Confederacy
Ooh.
and was enlisted for the Civil War. Unfortunately, 4 months later, he was discharged.
Did he quit or was he discharged?
I think he was discharged, which I have a feeling has something to do with his problem with the drink.
So, he was a blackguard.
But once he arrived home, Mary and him had a child named Mary. They weren't really working hard on naming people.
I guess not.
Clayton, Alabama. But anyway, and then she quickly learned that her newfound husband had become a drunkard to the drink whiskey.
Yeah, so it was, I'm assuming, turmoil and problems all throughout the house.
Yeah, she was constantly upset about his constant drunkenness in the house. So much so that she even threatened that one day this would be the death of him. And that if it was, she would lay him to rest with a bottle of whiskey on top of him.
Okay, well, and
Guess what?
she...
He killed the fuck over
Okay.
from the drink.
From the drink.
And she followed through with her promise.
And how did she do that?
So today, you can go and find William's gravesite at Clayton's cemetery, city cemetery. And in that cemetery is a grave that has a bottle-shaped tombstone, not only at his feet, but at his head too, because Mary followed through with that promise.
Believe it.
Or not.
Believe it or not.
So anyway, this next story. Do you know this famous whiskey called Jameson?
I do know of this famous company.
Yeah, famous Jameson company, right? This is something they won't tell you on the Jameson tour.
I'm assuming this is a dark story.
This is the dark story. In the 1800s, Jameson's heir, Slingo Jameson.
Yeah, we call him Sluggo.
Anyway, he was an expeditionist.
Allegedly.
Yeah, he went on expeditions, sometimes to the Congo.
Oh, okay.
And actually, he actually named a few birds and other animals, discovered them.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he actually did do something.
Wow.
Nice. But unfortunately, while he was on these Congo, expeditions,
Yes.
his guide was telling him about the cannibals that lived in this area of the country. And he thought it was just a whole bunch of malarkey, maybe?
Okay.
Or did he? Because eventually the guide asked him to give him some cloth. So Jameson gave him 6 handkerchiefs.
Completely unsoiled.
Unsoiled, clean handkerchiefs. And he took off with him, the guide did. When he returned, he came with a small girl. We're going to leave it at that because there's a whole lot of area I don't want to get in, and I haven't had enough to drink to go deep into that. It was a young child, girl, woman, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Shortly following the arrival of that person, men came out of the woods, stabbed her, killed her, and then chopped her up into pieces. And
That's horrible.
Went down to the river, cleaned those pieces up so they could prepare them for dinner.
Okay, so cannibals came out of the woods and killed this girl.
Cannibals came out of the woods and killed this girl so that Jameson could witness this.
So the connection is Jameson gave these handkerchiefs
to the guide who gave them to
trade for this
girl. Yeah.
Okay.
We're really trying to stay within this little frame of safety in this because this is really, really bad.
Well, no kidding.
So
Allegedly.
He allegedly witnessed this girl being killed, chopped up into pieces, and eaten.
And he allegedly has really detailed drawings of said event.
There are actually sketches online that you can find. If you type in James Jameson and sketches, those sketches will show up. That he said he sketched way afterwards, but some of these sketches are so detailed that the only way that could happen is somebody was sketching them as they occurred.
Yeah, maybe he did.
Yeah, but a few months later, he died of rheumatic fever, some horrible fever.
Yeah, it's a complication to malaria of some sort, which killed him
the
over.
story made its way back to the rest of the world and his family. And they did everything they could to kind of hide it, kind of put out some false narratives, whatever they could, because even his notes were talking about this and the sketches.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of keep it from coming out. And it took a long time to kind of bury this story.
He took a diary. He had a...
Exactly.
Yeah, you know.
So because of that, it kind of getting disappeared over the time, right?
Yeah.
Disappeared over time. And then recently it's kind of come back up. And so everybody's kind of talking about it again. But the heir to Jameson, this James Slingo Jameson, may have been responsible for somebody being murdered, and eaten. And he witnessed it and drew pictures of it and all that stuff. And I'm pretty sure they won't tell you this on the Jameson tour if you go over there. And
I guarantee they won't.
So did James Slingo Jameson intentionally know what he was doing? Or was he just happened to see a really brutal murder and didn't think
decided he just so happened to have his sketchbook handy.
He just happened to have a diary and wrote it all down.
Yeah, well, believe it.
Or not.
Believe it or not.
So that was kind of a rough ending for us, starting off with a Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood song.
Yeah, I think that the cannibalism story was
kind of dark.
Yeah, it was evil.
But you know, that's how we work here. You know, sometimes it's lighthearted and sometimes it's
really gross and demented.
Medium rare. In the meantime, you guys should like, share, and
subscribe. And don't forget, hey, we got a dong to ding.
So ding it, because you know you never know what crazy, stupid crap we'll do next.
Anyway, be safe and where's my glass?
I don't know.
Cheers.